Hey there, everyone. Welcome to A Slice of Life with Kelly and John. Today, our guest is Gary Van Scyoc. Did I get that right?
That's
And
it.
he is
You're
a
good.
musician, an author, a songwriter, a bass player, and a great guy, from what I hear.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so, Gary, tell us, where did all this musician, songwriter, all this begin? How did you start?
Well, let me that's this is why she loves the podcasting. Let me just say how I connected with
Okay.
Gary.
How did you connect with Gary?
Well, first of all, I knew of him simply through the what was the media at the time, then kids, things like Rolling Stone magazine and
Wow.
all the other rock magazines that were out at that time. Gary was the bass player for the band out of New York City called Elephant's Memory. Now, for many of us who were born farther away from the apocalypse, Elephant's Memory was the band that John Lennon used on the album Sometime in New York City, produced by Phil Spector, and had
Oh,
several
wow.
great songs on it. But Gary was the bass player for the band at that time. And then a few years later, after that album came out, and then John went off on his probably somewhere to do other things in his lost weekend in LA. But Gary and I, the band Elephant's Memory, the band that I was in, this Jersey club band at the time called Diamond Jim, we wound up connecting with Elephant's Memory and we did several shows with them. And Gary and I developed a very good relationship and we stayed friends for quite a while, probably until I disappeared from New Jersey and moved to LA. So that's how, and then of course, thanks to Facebook and the internet and all that, I reestablished my connection with Gary, and so over the years, I've just been we got to get together. So this is, I guess, step one. So Gary, it is wonderful to see you again. You look great. I love the fact that you have these gold or maybe even platinum albums. I can't tell back there on the wall. But why don't you tell the world how it started back in the early 70s?
Thank you, John. What a great introduction. It's great to be with you and Kelly today. Uh, 1969 was a pivotal year for me. I had finished with a band on Columbia. I don't think you'd remember it, called Pig Iron. Do you remember Pig Iron?
Heard it, did not know heard of it at the
They were
time.
on Columbia Records
Yeah.
and they decided to pack it in. They had a successful stint, maybe 3 or 4 years. And so I actually answered an ad in the Village Voice. I had been doing studio work for that year of 71, very successful. I had done some gigs with Neil Sedaka, recorded a little bit with Paul Simon at Columbia Records. But I wanted to have a live band. I missed it playing out. I kept hearing about Elephant's Memory in the Village Voice. They had been doing all these great shows at Columbia University and NYU. They played in Washington Square Park, and I went, wow, that looks like fun. So I was doing an Atlantic date with Jerry Ragavoy. He wrote Little Piece
Yes.
of My Heart for Janis Joplin, and we were real
Oh.
close doing a couple of Atlantic records. And Jerry said, wow, if you have a chance to get down and play with the Elephants, you should go because they're really good. We had Stan Bronstein, their sax player, in last week, and he's just phenomenal. So that did it for me. If upon a recommendation from Jerry, I went down and auditioned. It was like a cattle call. There were probably 60 people there to audition. So, but I think they had done their research. It seemed a little weird when I got there because I kind of got shuffled to the front and I kind of went through the audition process. And it wasn't even as much playing as it was as how you doing, what have you been playing on lately, and this and that. So I got the gig with the Elephants, and it was a fun time. We started doing shows in New York, playing places like Max's Kansas City, and we did a couple of shows at the Fillmore. It was about to close. So that if that gives you some kind of a time era, there was the Fillmore was pretty much done. So I started working with Elements, and we had a good time. So along comes Christmas in '71, and our drummer comes in and says, "I don't want to get you guys too nervous, but I heard from John and Yoko, and they might stop by at our studio, which was in Greenwich Village, called Magna Graphics." And he said, "They just might stop by tonight." And we thought he was crazy. Well, what I didn't know is we had made a tape. John, do you remember a station on Long Island called WLIR?
Of course, absolutely.
Well, anyway, in those days, you did a live show for like a half an hour on the air live, but somebody had made a tape,
Mm-hmm.
slipped it to us on the way out, and that tape, that cassette tape, found its way to John and Yoko through Jerry Rubin, the activist, the
Right,
political.
right.
He had slipped them a tape, so they knew all about us already. John had been checking us out. I heard, when I was talking to John a couple months later, he says, "Oh no, we looked you guys up. We had mutual friends that found out you guys were all studio players and that you would be available and would be talented enough to come in and play on our stuff." So they came down that night at the little studio, Magna Graphics, showed up about 7:30. My jaw just dropped. I mean, we were totally freaked out. It was just a great experience. They were so sweet and so kind. John wanted to play, didn't bring a guitar. I guess he didn't want to be too presumptuous, so he didn't have an axe with him. But of course, we had a couple around, and we played for about 6 hours.
Wow.
Wow, how fun.
We were like totally spent. We played every rock and roll song known to man that wasn't a Beatles song.
Right,
All the
right.
old rock and Elvis, the only thing we did that was kind of Beatlesque was we did a really good version of Dizzy Miss Lizzy. And I think that's one of the things that sold him on us when we rocked out on that. But you heard Elephants rock. We could rock pretty hard.
Absolutely. When you said that, I can almost imagine Stan, the sax player, doing that
Oh, yeah,
da-da-da-da-da-da from
yeah,
Dizzy Miss
yeah.
Lizzy on that. And Lennon, having only heard it with guitars doing that, when he heard a sax, he probably just, it was perfect. It was perfect for
Well,
that.
when you mention sax like that, that's really what sold John on the band. And of course, anybody that's ever heard the band back then, Stan was so outrageous
Yep.
and a
Yep.
very front person and just commanded the audience. It was when John heard him, and to later find out, even in stuff that I'm reading now on the Power to the People box set, comments that he made about he thought he was uh, just about the shit. He was about he was all about Stan. He loved Stan. He liked the band, but Stan was so strong.
Now the drummer was Rick. I remembered
Very
Stan
good.
and Rick. So you, Stan and Rick, the guitar player, even though he played a great guitar and he played a Les Paul just like I did, uh, but I never recalled his name. The
Wayne
guitar player.
X Gabriel, and he was from Detroit and had just been in town a little while when we met John and had made that recording that I mentioned on Long
Right,
Island.
right.
IR. But he had been in Mitch Ryder's band, Mitch Ryder and the Detroit Wheels.
No kidding, Chris. That's where Cactus wound up getting Jim McCarty
They were
too.
great friends too. I think I don't remember whether Tex replaced Jim McCarty or Jim McCarty replaced Tex. I've lost the continuity there, but they came out of a pretty good guitar pool there in
Now,
Detroit.
had Elephant's Memory, see, the first thing that I heard from Elephant's Memory, and certainly before Lennon, I believe that they had like this underground song that got played on WNEW-FM a lot called Mongoose.
It was a top 40 hit.
It was,
It,
right? Right?
and I think it made it up to 39 in Billboard and Cashbox. It was
That
hit.
qualifies as top
Yeah.
40.
Yeah. So
And
they were on Metro Media Records then. So
okay.
that became a problem that night that I was referring to, that we first played with John and Yoko. At the end of the night, I'll continue the story. They said, "Well, we'd like to join your band. We love it."
Oh my gosh.
And we looked at each
Wow.
other and went, "Are you kidding me?"
Did you have to think about it for a while?
I'll tell
Or at
you.
least a second?
So we finally, when we realized they were serious, we had to sit down and work stuff out. Like, as I just mentioned, we were already signed to
You
Metro.
and he would want you signed to Apple Records, I guess.
So how do we pull that off? First,
Okay.
so it didn't take 2 weeks for the Apple suits to contact Metro Media and get us released.
And I mean, think about this. And your first album with him is produced by, granted, insane as he might have been, Phil Spector.
Right?
You know?
It didn't last
time.
long.
No, I got that. And even John Lennon said, "I'm done with this guy,"
Yeah.
during the rock and roll album. But yeah. But I mean, think about that. Out of nowhere, this New York City rock group is playing with John and Yoko and being produced by Phil Spector on Apple Records.
It was, yeah.
Overnight you really became royalty. You became rock and roll
Right.
royalty at that
Yeah.
point. Now
And
I
then,
got to tell you, I about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I believe, I watched the One-on-One movie that
mhm.
recently came out about
Yeah,
John playing that garden show.
it was great.
Yeah, it was great. I have issues about it, but then that's because I'm critical. Uh, you
You're
know,
allowed.
but it's supposed to be about this concert. It's named after the concert, but very little is said about the purpose of the concert or the reason for it at that time. But and again, that's me because I remember that time. I remember what Geraldo Rivera was trying to do at that
Yeah,
time.
everyone in New York knows the story, I guess. You,
Right.
of course, yes.
Well, what's the story? Why was
There was and Gary, correct me along the way. Like I said earlier, some of these cells don't work anymore or aren't connected. But in out in Long Island, I believe it was, there was a place called the Willowbrook Sanitarium,
Yeah,
Mental Institute, whatever
yeah,
it might have been.
yeah.
And somebody had gone, maybe Geraldo, maybe somebody else had gone undercover into the place and found horrific treatment. This was, I guess, around 72, 73, Gary?
It would be 1970,
Seven,
71.
okay. And so they had uncovered all of this stuff. So, of course, at the time, this was the era of George Harrison doing the Bangladesh thing.
Mhm.
So Geraldo wanted to do this event to raise money and awareness
okay?
for this Willowbrook event, this place. And so he got John Lennon and Yoko and Elephant's Memory and many other luminaries of that time
He
to
pulled it
do
off
a
well.
concert. Say again?
He pulled that off pretty well. He got
Yes,
some
he did. He really
Stevie
did.
Wonder.
Nice.
Stevie Wonder was quite great on the show.
That's right. That's right. I mean, it was a lot of great people, and so Gary and Elephant's Memory were backing him up
Part of it.
on that show too. I
Wow.
think Jerry Rubin got in on the act, if I'm
Oh
not
yeah, you
mistaken,
had to stick with
and the other guy uh, uh, from down the village.
Sha-na-na.
No, no, down the guy who would just like bash on a guitar, scream and sing.
Oh,
I
David
love
Peel.
marijuana. David Peel, that's it. And the Lower East Side. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I have again. I
and that
have issues with
David
David,
well.
but he was there, and somehow John Lennon liked him, and I think he produced one of David's albums.
One album, yep.
You know, The Pope Smokes Dope was the album.
That's it.
Yeah. Boy, I'm getting a lot of synapses going
Long
on back
time.
here. So go ahead. So tell us, give us some memories of the concert or anything like that you'd like to do.
Well, we rehearsed a couple of weeks at the Fillmore East before the show. John just loved playing so much. It wasn't that we didn't know the songs and had to rehearse for that. He just loved to play every day. He really got into it. So we went down to the Fillmore, and every afternoon we ran the show a couple times. And I coaxed him every day to do a Beatles song. He would not do it.
No.
So finally, one day I come into the Fillmore and I'm coming in a little late and I hear the band striking up Come Together. And I went, oh, finally. And
And he did that, right? Didn't he do that at the show?
yeah, we did Come Together at the
Yeah.
Garden, the only Beatles song. And it was a thrill to play McCartney lines and feel like a Beatle for an hour. It was great.
Yeah, yeah, that's big time. I mean, you can't get bigger than the Beatles.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, yeah.
But let me jump back to Phil Spector, as you were referring to, producing sometime in New York City. Uh, Phil didn't like us at all. He really resented us for some reason. I think he thought we were more like David Peel, like street musicians. He didn't understand that we had all been in other name bands and
Yeah,
Columbia.
I can't see the correlation between those two acts at all. At all.
Course, but he didn't. He kind of thought he looked down his nose at us. He didn't really like us. So John picked up on that, and the first time Phil came in, the typical Phil Spector, he puts a 45 automatic silver-handled revolver on the board with a huge bag of coke, and John just looked at him and went, "Oh, not again."
You
He,
see, Kelly, there was a period. John just wanted to make an album of all the old rock and roll songs that he was inspired with. This is
right.
after the Beatles.
Yeah,
He had I don't know if it was LA, it was in LA or New York that he was recording this.
I think that
And
was out in L.A. Yeah,
okay, yeah,
the rock and roll album you're referring to.
yes, the rock
Yeah,
and roll album, and so he has Phil Spector come in because Phil had that wall of sound type of
I
thing,
understand that decision.
and oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. But
but
at some point during the session, uh, Phil Spector shot the gun off in the
yeah,
control room into the ceiling,
I'm just
and
so happy.
John was like,
On
"That's
our,
it, we're done."
yep.
And I think John might have produced the rest of the album, but put Spector's name on it, I
Well,
think.
he did with our album sometime in New York City. John, Phil was only around for maybe 2 or 3 nights and
Mm.
Wow.
got sick of it. But as you mentioned, he was a gentleman. He put Phil's name on the record, and I guess they didn't totally break because, as you say, a couple years later, he asked him to do the rock and roll album. But
Now, and that album, the tapes or something that somehow somebody owed the guy from the Crooked Guy, the guy that was connected with the mob, Morris Levy.
Yeah,
Somehow those tapes wound up in Morris Levy's hands
I
as
don't
a
know how that happened.
yeah, well, you read different books. I read Tommy James's book, how that happened. I
Great
read,
book.
something that Lennon said, maybe, obviously before he died, about how it happened. There's five or six different stories, but yeah, it wound up in Morris Levy's hands, and he wound up releasing it. And it's, just one of those albums that you really don't care about except for Stand By Me or something like that,
Oh, great track. Yeah, great track.
Yeah, great track. The rest of them were, I could take or leave them, but and I'm a dedicated Lennon fan.
Yeah,
So,
John was that was the L.A. period. We have to
did
tell
you did you
you
have
that crazy
any
thing that he went down.
with the Sometime in New York City album, because it was a John and Yoko album to a degree, there was an equal amount, if I'm not mistaken, of Yoko songs
Exactly.
as there were John songs.
And also at the Garden, where they kind of split the show
Right.
50-50.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So Yoko was very unique in her music, but those songs on that album were pretty straight. If they weren't ballads, they were rock and roll.
Yeah. Oh,
And they weren't that, avant-garde 14 minutes of atonal music with her howling.
not on
These were
that album.
legitimate songs. These were
Got
great
into a
songs.
little bit of that stuff at the Garden. We did a couple of her tracks from her previous albums, like let me see, "Don't Worry, Kyoko."
Yoko, mom, yeah, yeah,
So she kind of got into the screeching thing on a couple of those. "Open
yeah.
Your Box" was, I think that was from Fly, the album Fly. So, but that was the only two. Pretty much, we held her down a little bit.
Good, good, good. But I mean, on the album, were the songs technically written by John? And she got half credit, I would imagine. But was it easy for the band to acclimate into her style of singing, or did she acclimate to the band's recording of those songs?
I think she was more involved in the writing than a lot of people realize.
Okay,
She wrote, I think there were some strong songs there that were definitely 50-50.
great.
Born in a Prison, for example. Uh, but a lot of the other ones were from John's solo career, like Instant Karma and Well, 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 and It's So
Right.
Hard. And then the new ones, New York City, which is my favorite.
Absolutely. Well, I mean that's great song. Granted, it doesn't get played a lot, and I'm not gonna, woman is the N word of the
Right.
world.
Which,
I think that is a
that,
fantastic song.
oh, I
Besides the production of it, the lyrics of it, what the song is saying is fantastic.
very heavy, and but we knew on instantly when we heard it the night that he brought it in that it wasn't going to fly. Because earlier, I think maybe only about a month or so before that, Elephant's Memory had had our latest single banned by the FCC for using the word dope.
Oh,
They had
geez.
a follow-up single to Mongoose that you mentioned earlier, uh, and it was called Skyscraper Commando, and in the lyrics there was the usage of the word dope. So the FCC knocked us right off the air. It was already top 40 on Billboard,
Oh,
and they knocked it down. So we knew that there was going to be some eyes on John with that kind of lyric approach. Uh,
Good.
and
Just Oh, go
Ippolito,
ahead. Sorry. Keep going.
our keyboard player Adam Ippolito went up to John that night and took him over in the corner and said, "John, are you really going to say that?" And because we knew it
I
wasn't
know,
going
but
to.
but look, he had broken that barrier a few years earlier, I think, on his very first solo album when he did Working Class Hero when he said the F word twice in
Hey,
it, in an acoustic song. You couldn't say it got buried in the mix. It was right there.
yeah, no contradiction or anything, right? But you you know that the FCC was all over him because they had heard about from the Nixon administration that John was going to size up all these
Right.
political guys.
I was just going to ask you about that. Now, of course, back then, no, John Lennon's not under investigation. Years later, we know that Nixon and J. Edgar Hoover did a complete investigation and tried to get him kicked out of the country.
Yeah,
That was during the time
all
you guys were with him.
all of our phones were tapped for 1972, the whole year up until the election, at least. And these guys in these black fedora hats. As my friend Bob Gruen, Bob Gruen, the
The
photographer.
photographer. Yeah.
So he said in his book he couldn't get over how the guys in the black fedora hats were following him around all day. So we just kind of got used to it. My wife back then used to, every time she picked up the phone, there'd be a huge click, and I used to see them going in basement of my building, posing as phone repairmen.
Yep. Yep.
That's the way they did it back then.
Wow.
They actually recorded stuff on reel-to-reel tape.
Now, at this point, was John living in the apartment down in the village, or had he gone to the Dakota yet?
When we first met him, he was on Bank Street, and that's where our studio was. So he only had to walk a block to come and play with us. But somewhere in the first few months, they moved up to the Dakota. Yeah.
All right, all right. So you've been fortunate enough to be there at the
Oh yeah.
Dakota.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
you're killing
quite
me.
quite the place, I got to say.
Yeah, but and the thing is, when you and I were hanging out in the latter part of the 70s, I guess, we probably had these conversations. I probably just went crazy every time we'd get together because, if I remember, because you lived in New Jersey, right, for a little bit?
Well, during the Lennon years, all of the 70s, I lived in
New York.
84th and First.
Okay, okay. So, but I remember somehow you were playing with a band called Footlong Dog later on, years later.
Footlong Dog.
Do you remember
Oh,
that?
talking about Hot Dog Man, the song the Elephants had on.
No, no. I remember. Boy, okay. I either that or you and I went to go see a band up
I,
on Kinderkamack Road in New Jersey, somewhere out in Bergen County. And I remember there was a band called Footlong Dog. You don't recall any of
John
that?
would have been my band. Everyone.
Do not know. I don't
That's the
remember.
Jersey band that I was in at the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm sorry, folks. Kelly, you may want to cut this out because this is a complete non
The names of
sequitur.
the bands are cracking me up.
Oh, Footlong Dog. Yeah.
Funny.
Yeah. Great, great
Yeah.
stuff. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All good.
Yeah, it's fun to reminisce. I have to, John, I've never told you this because I know how much you love the Beatles. I have a whatever 6 degree of separation with the Beatles.
Go
So when
ahead.
I was working in LA in the late 80s, I worked for William Morris Agency, which was the world's largest talent agency at the time. Now it's William Morris Endeavor.
Right.
Um, Sally Kellerman was a client and she hadn't shown up to do her voiceover, I think at Chiat Day or wherever. And so they wanted me to just keep calling her. Like I had to call these numbers that we had for her and just keep calling and calling and calling. And finally she picked up the phone and she's like, "Oh, darling, I've been jamming with Ringo." Like, well, you really can't blame her because she was Sally Kellerman. I mean, they're not going to fire her.
Uh,
So yeah, she skipped her job
to hang out with
doing a
Ringo.
voiceover
Oh, well,
and
there's a
stayed with
question
Ringo.
for you, Gary. Did you ever get to meet? Obviously, we know that you connected with Julian or Sean, if I'm
Oh,
not
yeah,
mistaken,
Sean.
Sean Lennon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever get to meet and hang out with any of the other Beatles?
Briefly, I met Ringo at the David Letterman show one day. As our guitar player, Tex Wayne Gabriel, that I mentioned earlier, his wife produced David Letterman
Oh,
for 10
Fun.
years.
Wow, I love David
So
Letterman.
we had an in there. So when I would go to the show, it just happened to be a day that Eric Clapton and Ringo were on. So I briefly met Ringo. It was a real thrill, but not really it was just a handshake and a quickie.
that's it. That's it.
Get a
I
hang.
met
I,
Julian at
I,
the China Club in New York. I used to hang out at the China Club when I lived there. Do you guys familiar with it?
of
China
course.
Club?
Of
Yes.
course.
Yeah, Julian used to hang out there too, and now Rogers. And now always used to buy me and my friend drinks. Just very nice guy, not trying to get it anywhere with us at all. And then Julian, I think he introduced us to Julian Lennon one night, so that was kind of fun.
Very cool. Yeah,
Maybe the
my
Julian sometime, but I've been hanging out with Sean this past year because of the one-to-one concert and
right.
the Power to the People box set, and there was a yellow vinyl that came out on the record day this year with some of the tracks from the show. So we went to the premiere of One to One and hung out with Sean. And also just recently we did the Dolby Sound System Theater in New York when they premiered the night of the Power to the People box set. We had a great time that night as well and hung out with Sean. It was great to talk to Sean and find out more about, if maybe I'm anticipating a question here, but I wanted to find out what the deal was for leaving the woman as the blank out of the record. It's not included on the box set if anybody hasn't figured it out yet. But I really, as it was explained to me by Sean, I really don't have a problem with it. It was really more the lawyers at Universal that kind of put that forth and carried it through. And I think Sean was just so intense and he wanted to get the whole thing out
Mhm.
that he didn't really stand in their way. He's taken a lot of criticism for that. I really don't have a problem with it because if you want to hear that song, all you have to do is go on YouTube and play it. it
Right.
it's not like it's just not on the box set. It would in a perfect world would I like it to be on there? Yeah, but I don't really feel like it's making a big fuss about it. I'm just thankful that the darn thing came out after all this time, 53 years.
Wow.
I'm thrilled. I mean,
And but when you listen to it, or it just sounds as good as anything that would have come out today.
oh, no doubt.
I mean, the songs are just timeless,
Yeah.
absolutely timeless, and in not just forget just lyrically, he was always there, but musically, production value, it was always there.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
crazy. You can listen to a recording of From Me to You now and still go, wait a minute, that's just a perfect recording. And it was 19, what, 63?
Yeah.
You
Probably.
know,
Yeah.
uh,
I was
they
still in
had,
high
they
school.
had it. They knew what they were doing. And even at that, they didn't have stereo. They only had two-track mono, I
Yeah.
think,
Which is
at that time. Which what?
that's pretty darn good. The
Oh,
mom
unbelievable, unbelievable. But
killer.
so there you go. And so I'm just going to take a shot for those people who might be watching, who are aware of this. When you did sometime in New York City, by that time, was it a 12 track or 24 track?
24.
24, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was Roy Sakala was the engineer at the record plant. I'm sorry. Yeah, the record plant is where we did that one. Yeah.
Is that the record plant? Am I wrong? Was the record plant Jimi Hendrix's old Electric Ladyland?
No, those are two separate ones. I
Okay.
worked at both of them throughout those years. Uh, I actually jammed with Jimmy down there once.
Wow.
Uh, as it turns out, Eddie Kramer, his producer,
Yeah.
produced a couple of things for Elephant's Memory. It was a tight little group there. We were friends with Eddie Kramer, so and I did quite a few dates at the Hit Factory also. But Electric Lady and the Record Plant were kind of the in vogue places then.
Yep, yep. No, it's after it changed from Electric Ladyland, it became, I forget what it is now, but it's something now.
I really don't know. I haven't kept.
Yeah. I took a picture in front of it about 10 years or so ago. But anyway, again, those cells are gone.
Well, I have a
So
question. What are all those records behind you on the wall? What are they for?
They're all with John, and except one is Elephant's Memory Gold album for the soundtrack to Midnight Cowboy, the Academy Award-winning movie
Fun.
with Elephant did
Whoa.
for John, which people don't realize sometimes. I don't mind giving that a plug.
Yeah.
Yeah, they won the best picture of the year in 1969, Midnight Cowboy, and Elephant's Memory did the soundtrack.
Oh,
okay.
awesome.
So Earl, before we got on screen, we were talking about when I had met you, and at that time, Elephant's Memory had an album out that was called Angels Forever, and it was more or less connected to a movie that the Hells Angels made, and you guys were connected closely to the Hells Angels. Fortunately, not the group that was out in Altamont, but
Wait,
No,
the biker gang? Or was
yeah,
it a
it was
yeah.
the Coast chapter of the Hells Angels,
Oh,
and
wow.
they kind of took us under their wing because they wanted to feel like they were the West Coast Angels taking the Grateful Dead under their wing. So they had
Okay.
this real protective thing going on with Elephant's Memory at all of our shows. They would be outside the
Oh, wow.
doors, and you know the drill in New York. So, but they were. I wrote that song. That's my song, Elephant's
All
Memory soundtrack to Angels Forever. I wrote Angels Forever.
right.
Uh, that was a great album. We recorded it over in Wales. And spent maybe 8 weeks in London and Wales. That was 1973. That was after we stopped working with John. That's the
Right.
first project we took on.
There was a there was a ballad on that ballad. It wasn't a heavy song, but there was a great rocker ballad that was on that, and for the life of me, I can't remember. Uh, do you remember it? Because we talked about it a
Well,
lot.
the nearest thing to a ballad, but was kind of like a faux pas for Elephant's Memory ballads. But maybe you're thinking of Gypsy Wolf.
Nope. I know the title. Oh, okay. You guys talk amongst yourself. I'm going to find it.
Well, I'm
Tonight,
excited that I get to hear all these great stories because it brings back some of my own memories of just hanging out in the clubs with the musicians and, being on the outskirts of it. But what a fun life you guys have. Like, what better job is there on earth than being a musician, getting
uh,
paid for it? I can't
it's
imagine.
the early stuff
oh, okay.
was a lot of fun. They're really
The
they.
name of the song was, and I love it, was Tonight.
Oh, do you
Yeah.
know? Do you know Chris, the keyboard player from
No,
El?
I didn't recall him much either.
Yeah, I sang the lead vocal on that.
I thought so. Yeah, I thought you did.
I
Yeah.
love that song. That's one of my favorites on
Yeah, me too. It
there.
really is a great song.
Yeah, it kind of different for Elephant's Memory because that wasn't written by Stan and Rick. That was written by Chris Robinson, his name. And Chris had just passed a couple of years back, and but I got to connect with him a few times through the years. He was on that album over in Wales that I just mentioned, called Elephants, Angels Forever, as you said. And I love that song, and he was gracious enough to
Absolutely.
let me sing lead on it. He later joined the band Steam. Have you heard of Steam?
Wait a minute. Am I wrong? Na 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 na. Hey hey.
That
Hey,
was
that
one of them. Yeah, but they were kind of a good pop band, and Chris spent a few years in that band as well. That song more belonged to like a Steam type of band than I thought it did to Elephants. But I still,
I always enjoyed that song. That
yeah,
I thought it was a
thank you.
really great song, and I'll make sure that Kelly gets the link to it.
Okay.
I'm sure it's out there
Sure.
somewhere. Uh, but yeah,
Well,
okay. So
Yeah, you
what
can hear
what's
that
what's
too.
going on now for you?
What's happening now?
Yeah,
Totally involved in this year of One to One, the the yellow album that came out with Record Store Day, the yellow vinyl, which is like a predecessor to the Power
right.
People box set, I guess you could say. And so I've been going to these premieres for all of that, and I think I'm up to in the 30s somewhere of interviews on the internet and podcasts and stuff
Well,
about.
we're happy that to have had you here today.
yeah,
That's
thank
for
you.
sure.
Yeah,
I'm so happy reconnecting with you. It really it brings back a lot of you remember, I don't know if you remember coming to my house in Fairview. I had that little recording studio in my basement,
Fairview.
New Jersey.
Yes, I know what
Okay.
you're talking about. Yep,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a little foggy, but I do remember. I
Well, yeah, those were the days of a lot of fog. So there you go.
well said.
But okay, so here's what we'd like to do. In another several months, after you do all this stuff with the box set and you're doing all of this, we want you back. We want to hear more.
That's so nice. Let me give you a preview of one of the things I found out about the game plan, so to speak, from the Lennon estate, from Sean himself. When we were hanging with him, the whole concert, not just the movie with 4 or 5 songs from the concert,
Right.
but the whole thing's coming out on DVD next year. So that'll
Next.
be another whole big deal coming around next year, probably another premiere, and we'll have some fun with that as well. But I've heard everything. Simon Hilton, who runs the whole Lennon estate now, flew over and we hung out for a couple of times, and he played me the whole thing, which will be the DVD from next year. I saw it, I heard it, and it's just going to be remarkable. The stuff that those producers and engineers working with Sean did on that album is just unreal. I mean, it's just the sound is like none of the Phil Spector stuff is there, none of the tape echoes. It's all gone, and a new, fresh, modern approach with all the great effects they have now. And it just sounds incredible. I
Nice.
encourage everybody to go out and check it out when it comes out. I wish I had a date for you, but that hasn't been decided yet, I don't think.
Okay.
That's okay. I'll get it.
I,
I'll get it. And then I'll finally go over to your place and I'll have you sign it.
oh, anytime. You kidding?
Aw.
There there
I'm
you go.
also glad we were able to reconnect. And congratulations on your books.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I know you probably, every one of my books I have a dedication in them. They're dedicated to somebody important to me and John Lennon. Every book has a dedication and a quote that from John that in some way has something to do. It's a line from a Lennon song, has
Okay.
something to do
Well,
with
that's great.
that book, you know?
He would appreciate it. He was so down home, man.
Yep,
Aw.
yep.
He loved it.
Well, there you go.
Much to both of you.
Okay, thank you
Well,
so
yeah.
much,
Thank
Gary.
you.
It was
Nice to meet you.
wonderful seeing you
Good meeting
again.
you, Kelly.
Okay. Thanks.
And
Bye-bye.
take care.
Thank you.
All views expressed in this video belong to Kelly Nicholson, John D'Amore, and guests. These discussions do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever with which they have been affiliated now or will be in the future. The opinions expressed are solely theirs, and since they are critically thinking human beings, these views are subject to change, subject to revision, and subject to rethinking at any time. These conversations are not meant to be taken as advice and are only for the purpose of entertainment. All statements may be based on hearsay and not necessarily valid proof of any claims in this video. It is not our intention to teach or advise on any topic. Unless otherwise noted, all photos are public domain.
Thanks for watching A Slice of Life with Kellie and John.